Put your red shirt on and a brown coat too. Everybody's joining the crew. We got just one drink that we rule them all. Hope you'd remember your towels. Get your Ulu feathers and your Middle Earth guns. A sonic screwdriver or a sword plus one. Use Valerian steel it will get you to come. To the pit tank. To the pit tank. The Rocky Mountain pit tank.
Hi, I'm Guy,
Hi, I'm Troy,
and this is Geek Tank.
your streaming service-sized podcast, streaming to you right now live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch.
Yes, actually, it is.
It is.
So, today we're going to talk a little bit about the nature of
The Beast.
the beast, the streaming beast. We're late? Are we late?
It's 8:03.
It's 8:03.
Or
Maybe we are late.
maybe in another time zone.
Maybe we are late in another time zone.
I don't know. Or maybe it means we're pregnant.
Did the rabbit die? Again?
Poor bugs.
I have a friend who actually had a Volkswagen Rabbit, and then one day it died. And I went to her and I said, the rabbit died. Because I thought it was funny and everything. And
Just went right over their head.
nah, she got it.
Oh.
It was she got it, and I'm surprised that I lived through it, and you know, that kind of stuff.
So we're sans Chelsea, and we'll be sans. Hey, I thought my phone died. I didn't know it still had any battery power left.
Is it a rabbit?
I don't think so. No, it's an Android. Maybe it's an Android rabbit.
Do Android rabbits dream of electric androids?
Possibly. Or do they dream of real androids? Could be.
So, we're going to talk about streaming services today.
Yeah, because we've been getting back together now for the past 2 or 3 Fridays now.
Yeah,
And so I'd say 3 Fridays.
3 Fridays. I think it's been 3 Fridays now. So that means that we're now talking about the state of recovery here with the movie industry, because we've got now sort of an established world whereby movies are being released streaming and in theaters. And what are they going to do with this?
And in some cases, they're simultaneously released. In other cases, they're released in the theaters about a month or 2 months before they're available on the streaming service, which is still considerably faster than pre-COVID times used to be, where you would have to wait almost a year or more for the streaming service to get the rights to air the movie, because it has to go through the phase of being at the theaters, then the phase of being available for rent on DVD and direct services, then you get it to the streaming services.
Right. Well, and that's significant because we've had quite a bit of so for years, we've talked about this before. For years, we've had this situation where it was a deal struck. I don't know whether it was the 60s or the 70s. I don't know when it was struck, but there was this deal struck between movie theaters and distributors that said that the home video versions of things had to wait until the movie theaters had played it out. And that was the battle plan. And that went, probably it was the 70s, I would guess, because that's the very beginning of our VHS era. And so we've had this problem whereby we've had to kind of go through this situation where every movie would come out and then we'd have to wait. Well, COVID hits and everything goes wonky. You know, says Brent, we're unsupervised.
Yep.
Everything goes wonky because of this whole situation of you can't go to theaters. So what do these movie theaters do? Now they've got these deals. Well, a couple of them have decided to break contract with that. And what happened was there was a cascade effect all of a sudden. Because really, honestly, HBO doesn't care whether you watch it in the theater or watch it on HBO. It doesn't make any difference to HBO. HBO doesn't get enough of a kickback from the theater to care.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll get just as much of a kickback from the subscribers they'll get to their HBO streaming service. So that's always been true. The problem is our numbers get wonky, right? So, like, for example, that's what started this whole thing was the Dragon movie that's coming out now. That I actually want to see, and I wanted to see it in the theater, but of course it came out still while we were still kind of locked down.
Right.
It's about
Raya and the Last Dragon by Disney.
Right. It's about to hit Disney
Friday.
Normal.
This Friday. So if you have a subscription to Disney Plus, it will not cost you anything extra to view it on Friday. Whereas if you want to view it before Friday, I think it's something like $30 to rent it through Disney.
Yeah.
So, and that's the way it's been since it's a release date. So you could either pay the $30 to, I assume, rent it for X amount of time, or pay whatever to go to the movie theater and see it. But Guy and I are like 1 month's nothing. We'll wait a month.
Right. So. And that's my thought. Maybe we'll watch it this Friday. I've been meaning to watch it for a long time. It's an animated feature. I love my animated features. Mm-hmm. It's got all the things I like in a movie. So, you know, it's a good thing to watch. I might watch it this weekend or this Friday with Troy.
We'll see what the group says. We've been watching The Good Place, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah. But the problem is that it only brought in about 8 million, which is construed as a flop.
For a Disney animated film.
Yeah.
You expect a lot more out of it.
So we yes, and Brent's talking about, you know, when you can watch this at home, what's a month, right?
Well, the movie theater experience, we've talked about this as well on past shows about how the movie theater experience before COVID was already going downhill because people were just being rude in theaters, and it wasn't a fun experience anymore. If people are going to talk during the movie, take phone calls, text, at least if you do that at my house, I can like hit you with a baseball bat. So,
right. Or throw a kid at you. Yeah. You've got a number of them.
Or a kid and a cat.
Or both. Any number of things could occur.
But now on top of that, a lot of people are still really cautious, like myself. I'm not really ready to go back to theaters yet. And so it's taken a hit.
Right. I'm much more willing to kind of go on ahead and get out there and do stuff. So I'm willing to go on ahead and head off to the Alamo for things.
One of the few places that will kick you out if you're loud.
Right. And feed you food. I like that too. So the thing about this is that we talked about this as well. The experience is going downhill. Mm-hmm. You pay $30 to watch a movie, everybody's loud around you, and you don't do anything else. You just kind of sit there. So it is sort of a thing.
Yeah, you're trading off all the convenience of pausing, rewinding, going to the bathroom, providing your own snacks versus a much larger screen and a really loud surround system.
Yeah, but to be fair, Brent, you're coming up with new words like wiggle ball bat,
which is way cooler than wiffle ball.
Spelling errors are obviously we will be just fine with that.
Right.
It is much more entertaining when you have wiggle ball bats.
Sounds like a slang for an STD.
Yeah, I think I got a wiggle ball bat, but run of antibiotics.
They make an ointment for that.
Yeah. So that's kind of a thing that's interesting, and I've been one of the things that I had heard though, and I had heard this online from the groups that I'm involved with, was I hope that people take that the reason why Raya failed was the streaming service situation, not the fact that it's Asian, because that's one of the things that this person had observed before was the film would be badly marketed, badly run, badly, or whatever, and it would get out there and limp, and then everybody go, well, that's because they had minorities in it, So clearly we don't want to make any more movies with minorities. And then you don't get it anymore. That had been something that had occurred. Now, I don't think it happens as much today as it did back in the 80s and 90s, but it did happen in the 80s and 90s.
I wonder how much of the backlash to the live action Mulan may have affected to some degree people's willingness to see Raya, since it's also Disney. Like judging it before even hearing anything about it, just because it's in that same category.
I don't know. It is something to kind of wonder. So,
because I definitely have heard from several people they flat out refused to watch Mulan, the live action film.
Yeah, I watched it. It wasn't bad. It was just mediocre.
Mm-hmm.
And considering that Mulan is one of my favorite of the Disney flicks, I find it being mediocre is somewhat offensive just in general.
Mm-hmm.
Because the animated one's so good, So there's that. But again, it's back to the same question. I hope they take that the live action, the live action Mulan is, it flopping was because of mediocre writing and
filming in China with all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and not the fact that it was an all Asian cast. And so whenever
Right.
they do Mulan Part 2, the live action, and they decide to get Scarlett Johansson to play Mulan, you're like, well, it didn't work before, so we'll just get Scarlett Johansson to play Mulan,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying I didn't like it. I find it to be mediocre.
He's talking about Raya.
Oh.
He's not talking about Mulan.
Okay.
He's saying the thing he didn't like about Raya was that it's drawn. It isn't drawn animation.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I hate to say this as an old school animator, but I think the days of drawn animation are
On the outs,
to an end.
going the way of the horse-drawn buggy.
Horse-drawn dodo,
Yep.
which is a shame.
Unless you just say dodo. There.
Yeah, horse-drawn dodo. So anyway, something to think about. I'm curious about this. That's a lot of. We're going to reopen now. I'm wondering what the numbers are going to be.
It's really hard for horses to draw with hoofs. So
They can,
not
but
very
they only draw what behooves them.
okay.
It's the main event for them.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's their big shoe.
It is.
So what other animated shows have you seen coming out that might have caught your eye that's new? Because only the new stuff, like I haven't watched it yet, but second season of Robots and Love is on
It's
Netflix.
already up. Yeah.
That's been out for almost a month.
Well, I mean, we get some things. Like we get Dune pretty soon here. And I'm curious about Dune. That's not animated, but it is.
Yeah, and it's gotten lots of good hype, I guess, because of the cast.
Yeah, I mean, I am curious. So
Coming up in July, we've got the Suicide Squad, written and directed by James Gunn, which is one of those that may or may not be released in theaters the same time. Or I've heard this weird rumor that they're going to come up with tier levels for HBO Max now. And I don't know if this is going to really happen or not, but where your standard HBO Max stuff will be one price, but then if you pay a higher price, then that will give you access to all of the stuff coming out in theaters. So I don't know. I got a lot of background
trying to figure it out, I guess.
Hey, we have Michael joining us here online.
Hey, Michael.
Facebook. Good to see you there.
Yeah, it's good to see you. So we've got Black Widow coming up too.
Right. Well, that's been done for a while. They've just been holding off on it because they wanted to release it in theaters.
Yeah.
That's going to be a Disney thing, which means they most likely are going to do that simultaneously in theaters. Or no, they'll probably do the Raya thing where you have a month where you have to pay for it.
Right.
Which is a scary business model in the aspect of what if they start doing that with everything that's popular? Like, what if WandaVision cost you an extra $15 per episode to watch, or you had to wait to like the next month and risk spoilers in that case?
Yeah. I mean, that's a thing. I don't know. It's kind of difficult. That's the one that, well, that's true of anything now. Now we've got 72 different streaming services. So the question is, do I get all the streaming services and spend $4,000 a month so that I can't get spoiled on things? That's where I'm getting kind of worried about where we're heading here. Pixar and Disney is putting out Luca on the 17th. So just a few weeks from now, 2 weeks from now. And it's a coming of age story, experiencing an unforgettable summer filled with gelato, pasta, and endless scooter rides. It actually looks like just a romp. It's gonna be fun.
Not about a dog that's shot up into space. That'd be Laika. No. Laika, not Luca.
Huh. It's got John Ratzenberger in it. And Emma Birdman, Drake Bell, Maya Rudolph. And it stars 2 kids.
2 kids.
Yep, Jacob Tremblay and Jack Dylan Grazer.
I thought you just meant 2 random kids.
Random kids that just go out on the street, pick you, and you get in here. Yeah.
Get in this movie.
Get in this movie. So that's the thing. Ghostbusters is still planned to come out, the Afterlife one.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I mean, it's supposed to come out in 2 weeks. So there's that. I gotta admit, I'll go see that. Except it's probably got jump scares.
That's an animated movie that Brent just mentioned, Mitchell's versus the Machines, which I've seen advertised on Netflix, but I haven't watched it yet.
Yes, it's about the fish boy, Michael. So yeah, I'm actually kind of looking forward to. Wow. When you look at the cast on Ghostbusters Afterlife, though, it's got Finn Wolfhard, McKenna Grace. Okay, cool. But then it's Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, Sigourney Weaver.
Right, but, yeah.
Everybody but Egon. Because, we all know that Egon's gone bye-bye.
Well, maybe he'll be CGI'd as a ghost.
Maybe. I got to admit, that would be a thing.
We're at the technology after seeing a few of the Star Wars characters who I won't mention being redone in various episodes and movies.
Yeah. So Afterlife's coming out. That's I'm looking forward to that. I've been looking forward to that. But I know that there's going to be jump scares in it, so I've got to kind of let you go first.
Right. Speaking of jump scares, something that came out this month was A Quiet Place Part 2, which is pretty much all about jump scares. I haven't watched
a movie about jump scares.
Yeah, I saw the first one on Netflix, and it's of course a bunch of jump scares because the whole premise is that they're alien creatures that can hear sound from miles away, and so you have to be really quiet, which kind of makes me wonder if they can hear a pin drop from a mile away. Shouldn't they be able to hear your heartbeat if they're in the same room?
Especially if you're all nervous.
Right. So there's a bit of confusion, like weird wonkiness with the idea of how the creatures work. It was a well put together movie. It just has some characters making really stupid choices, and but nonetheless, it did well enough that of course they made a sequel.
So we also have a Ridley Scott movie called The Last Duel, which is interesting. Matt Damon, Adam Driver, Ben Affleck. Affleck.
So Mini Driver, when you say M Driver?
Adam Driver, yeah.
Oh, Adam Driver. I thought you said M. Okay.
M Driver. No. So that's interesting. That's going to be, it's a Ridley Scott flick. I'm kind of curious about that. I don't know if I'd want to go to the theater for it, but I am curious about it. So,
Okay.
Well, I mean, like some of these, like the Eternals, might be a lot of fun to go see in the theater,
Mhm.
right? Because it's a Marvel flick, right? Spider-Man: No Way Home, also a fun one to watch in the theater. Black Widow, definitely one to see in the theater. Shang-Chi, I'm not sure about that. I'm sure it's probably okay.
Oh, that's it's basically the Iron Fist Mandarin line.
Yeah.
And which Iron Fist got a lot of flack because it wasn't done all that great. The series that they did for Netflix, especially compared to like Daredevil, Jessica Jones, The Punisher,
Sure.
and Luke. I was about to say Luke Basin. Why am I forgetting Luke Cage? Luke Cage. So those were all really well done, and then they released Iron Fist, which was on the bottom of all of those, and that was one of those where I never read the comic, so I don't know how wrong they were in this, but the main character was, of course, a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white guy instead of an Asian actor playing him. So that's something that has changed with this new version of it.
Right. We also have West Side Story coming out, which is cool. That's one that's more what my wife and I will go watch, but also one that I wouldn't mind seeing in the theater. And Last Night in Soho are both. Last Night in Soho is a Lin-Manuel Miranda musical, and I'm looking forward to those.
I think he did that one. He wrote it before he wrote Hamilton.
Probably.
So,
but either way, those two are definitely on the list of things that my wife and I want to go see, but we know that most people will not necessarily want to go see it. It's not exactly what I call, like the, what do you want to call it? Not super high action stuff.
Oh, people who liked Hamilton will go see it, and it'll be a lot easier to get movie tickets than it was to get tickets to Hamilton.
And it's a thing where, they're musicals.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I are both theater people. So.
Which is something I don't think they've really picked up on, but by releasing Hamilton on Disney, I was hoping they were going to open up like a floodgate of more Broadway musicals being done for television, so people who can't go see it on Broadway would. But I think there was just too big of a fear that people would then not go see it on Broadway if they had accessible in the other way.
Well, and therein lies the rub, right?
It's the belief that if you deny them one access, then they will absolutely go the other route to get it and pay whatever to get it.
Well, and that's one of those things where, as a capitalist, it starts to make me think, well, wait a minute. Because if this is the better model, what you're doing is effectively making artificial gateways so that people cannot vote with their dollar.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore you are manipulating the system. Yet another one of those, well, somebody needs to kind of look into that one, I think. So it's something to think about. I don't know. I've been kind of pondering a lot of this stuff and like the nature of the beast. When we talk about like the nature of this entire, what do you want to call it? Industry.
Mm-hmm.
Movies cost a lot and they need to make a gateway so that you're forced to pay $30. Right. That's what they're after here is they're trying to get a gateway to lock people into $30.
Right.
Rick moved over.
He's everywhere.
Yeah. So, I mean, but that to me is manipulating the system.
Mm-hmm. Well, then of course, then you create this other need where people don't have the money to pay the amount that they want. And then along comes people willing to break the laws and make bootleg copies or provide other ways that are cheaper methods to get to it. And none of that money makes it to the people who made the movies. It's all going to the pirate. So they've lost out there because where they could have made half the money off of someone who wanted to see it, that half of that money now is going to an irreputable source. So.
Right.
But
Nice
yeah,
weather outside,
Mhm.
which we didn't really have. So there's that.
Yeah, it was rainy. It's
It was
cool.
rainy.
I liked it.
Yeah, but it wasn't good for those people who like to barbecue outside.
Mhm.
I can understand that. I appreciate that. So those are the things that I see on the list here that I'm interested in. Werewolves Within doesn't seem like my style. You know, Minions: The Rise of Gru, probably not my thing. Oh, it's In the Heights. That's what it is. It's not Last Night in Soho. It's In the Heights. That's what it is. It's Lin-Manuel Miranda.
So there's enough stuff coming to streaming that the movie's going to have to really be impressive to me to want to get me to go see it. Because when we have like Loki, the series coming on to Disney,
Yeah.
So
Loki, but I don't see it on here, so it's not imminent.
I think it's June. Let's see.
Yep.
Yeah, airing weekly in June, starting on the 9th. Wednesdays from June 9th.
Oh, because it's a series. That's right. I knew that. I was just testing you. You passed. Well done.
And it looks like they have more of the Bad Batch coming out on Fridays, or it's continually been coming out, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's been continually coming out. The Bad Batch is good. Or The Bad Batch is good, I've heard. I haven't actually seen it yet.
Mhm.
I just keep hearing that The Bad Batch is good. But we were watching Rebels, and I've got to admit, the Rebels series was really good, too. So...
Yeah, one of my kiddos has seen all the animated stuff at least once, or I'm sorry, at least twice through, and some stuff he's seen 3 and more times through. He's definitely a fan of it.
Yeah,
he is Disney's
good stuff.
target audience for all the Star Wars stuff.
Right. So there you go. I mean, that's where we are on streaming.
Mhm.
So we were talking about some of the shows that are on streaming that we're dealing with, like the Good Place.
Yeah. Well, why don't we start with one that a lot of people might not have heard of yet. If you have Netflix, this is currently on there, called Alice in Borderland, which I showed you the first 3 episodes of. And
I think we went further than 3 episodes, didn't we?
Nope, because we stopped at the big event, which I will not give away, which is it's in the 3rd episode.
It's where they all went out for pizza.
Exactly. I tell people if by the end of the 3rd episode, if you don't like the show, then you might as well stop because you've now seen what this show is going to do. So,
right.
But yeah, it's one of those films that crosses genres. It was originally a manga. I don't know if they did it. I don't think they did an animated version of it. And
no, I don't think so.
Without giving anything away, in the first 10, 15 minutes of the show, the 3 main characters are transported from what seems like regular day life in Japan to some weird, bizarre, alternate version of Japan where almost everybody is gone and the streets are empty. And that was probably one of the most impressive things, in my opinion, is the way they recreated Sakura Square. No, that's not right. Wait, what's that square with the dog? Shibuya, thank you. Yeah, where
Shibuya 102.
They recreated it and made it look completely empty. No traffic, no people. It was really nicely done and created this mysterious feel. And you having actually been there, Guy.
Right.
So
it was kind of wild.
But it's the mystery is then what's going on, and then more of what's going on starts to come out in each episode, and you have to follow it along to figure it out. And it's one of those, it's definitely in the horror category of storytelling, but it's more psychological horror than it is jump scares or gore, although there is a little bit of gore to be aware of. So I don't know. What do you have to say about that show?
My primary feeling on this is that it's the kind of horror that I like.
Mm-hmm.
They don't rely on the jump scares. They don't rely heavily on, but they rely very heavily on you freaking out,
mm-hmm.
the viewer.
Right. Getting
the story starts to edge into that
tension.
high intensity
Mhm.
sort of thing. So it's really cool.
Yeah, you were going to catch Kevin up on it, I think, and then we could
Yeah.
pick up together if we ever want to watch it.
Silence, huh?
I wonder if it's full of jump scares.
Yeah.
What else? I showed you the first episode of Doom Patrol.
I did like the Doom Patrol. That was cool.
That's on these. That's
So
on these.
we're all now starting to finally catch back up because we've been in
Isolated.
isolation. Although I've been watching all the shows that I enjoy, like really big on For All Mankind.
Yep, and The Expanse.
And The Expanse. And The Expanse I sort of knew I was going to like because I just did. Mm-hmm. It was, I have to admit though, The Expanse going on to streaming was a nice thing. Because as long as it was on Sci-Fi, one of the characters couldn't be herself.
No F-bombs.
Right? Because that's exactly what she does. Like every fourth word. Mm-hmm. And it's a wonderful character in the book. And the actress that portrays her does a phenomenally fun job with her on screen and not being able for her to actually just unleash a stream of profanities, because the whole premise of that character is that she's grandmotherly and like, you know, and everything. And then she just starts dropping F-bombs left and right. And it's fun as all get out in the book. It's even better on screen. Mm-hmm. So when they moved to streaming and she could just go all out, it was much, much, much better. I think you guys are all familiar with the actress. So she's got a very raspy, like hoarse sounding voice, which adds to the entire thing. So I can't remember her name though, right off the top of my head, but that's because aphasia. Yep, they had to edit them out. So that's exactly right. She was actually saying them, but it was the, you know, well, you've got to do your and they just cut them all out. And so it was like, you know, it was a thing.
You should download a scene and then go back in and just replace every one with a weird sound, like a cowbell. Yeah.
It's we were talking about that one with Good Place. Because that one's entertaining how they've gotten around that. So one of the things we were talking about was X-Files, though. One of my favorite episodes of X-Files has the best ever.
Right. With the Alex Trebek cameo.
Yep. So the episode's called Josie Chung's from Outer Space. And it's the story premise of the episode is that this guy is writing an expose on a UFO landing, and he has been interviewing all of these people. And finally, after all of this, he finally gets Scully in there to interview her for this. And she's like, what? No, none of that happened. Here's what really happened, you know, but it's all done in that Rashomon sort of thing where everybody has a different take on what occurred. So they're showing the same scene, and you'll end up with an actor with somebody saying the same word over and over and over in all these different scenes. But it was really cleverly written, because sometimes they would say something in one scene which clearly meant something. They'd say the exact same line in a second scene, but you've gotten more information and it means something completely different. And it was a very cleverly written episode, but one of my favorite parts of that episode was the local police officer. He cussed a lot, but since it was Scully telling the writer the story, you know, he comes up and goes, what the bleep is going on here? And it cuts back to Scully, and she goes, well, he didn't say bleep, he said. And then the author goes, no, I'm familiar with that particular police officer's colorful language. So every time he talks, then when it cuts back to the scene, he's like, you know, we got some bleep hole on the phone. does some bleep head want to talk to this bleeper? You know, and
Mhm.
and so it was like really cleverly written.
And then, of course, in Scully's version, the sheriff or officer, I can't remember who it was, actually looked attractive. But then when Mulder tells the story, he's got like these fake buck teeth in and acts like a hick. So
It's really cleverly written. It's a very clever episode.
they did a follow-up on the spin-off show called Millennium, called Jose Chung's Doomsday Defense.
Oh
Which
no.
is it's not as good, but it is good in the same style. So it's if you watch the one from X-Files and you have access to the one from Millennium, it's worth watching.
That's right. So Brent's got it right. Her name is Shora Agdashlo.
Gesundheit.
There we go. And she was indeed Admiral Paris in Star Trek Beyond.
Related to the other Paris?
I believe that she's supposed to be the great grandmother of Tom Paris. But yes. So anyway, the thing is, what I liked about it was that she was added in later to that movie because she's very popular in Expanse, and because of that, she wanted to get into the Star Trek, franchise somehow, and she's so, she's a Trekkie, so there's that, and that's a thing. That was something that my wife was bringing up. We now have an interesting sort of shift in our culture now. Before, I had brought this one up before. When certain actors were brought in, like Kirstie Alley was brought into Star Trek 2, and she was an unknown when she was brought into Star Trek 2. Well, then she was a known, and then she got the role in Cheers, and then she didn't want to reprise her role as Saavik because she didn't want to get typecast as science fiction. And so they had to recast Saavik, and that's where we get Robin Curtis. It's an interesting thing because that's the way it was in the 80s. You didn't join Star Trek. That was horrible. You'd get stuck there forever. But you and I were just talking about, what is that called? Gunpowder.
Gunpowder Milkshake.
Gunpowder Milkshake, which has Karen Gillian in it, who is now happy as a clam to be a geek superstar, so to speak. She's just going from geek show to geek show to geek show, and she is just happy. She's a geek. She's a geeky person herself as an individual. So as an actor, she is just fine, going along doing her thing, and she's been doing all of these different things. And that's things have changed now. We talk about Shora. She does the same thing. She's an epic Trekkie. She's been a Trekkie for years. She just wanted to get into Star Trek. So whereas before it was like, ooh, it's a death sentence to get into Star Trek. Now people are like, could I get into Star Trek? How do I get into Star Trek? And people are really scrambling to try to get into Star Trek. And so I find that an interesting shift in the way that our culture has gone now. That's something to talk about. We are really all over the place, and I'm sorry. I'm a scatterbrain today, but it's because I'm hyper focusing on Star stuff.
It's okay. I'm apparently doing a broadcast from Grand Central Station.
I noticed that.
It's like
in and out of the doors.
Everyone knows. Maybe they just think, I want to be on camera too.
Right.
So you should run our commercial since we're past our midpoint.
We are past our midpoint. We'll run our commercials that we still have not fixed. We need to fix our commercials.
Someday.
No, well, maybe someday. Okay.
Geek Tank is sponsored in part by Geekway Homes. If you're a geek and you need a home, contact Geekway Homes at www.geekwayhomes.com. Also, we're sponsored by Kieran Games. If you need games, this is the place to go. Contact Kieran Games at kierangames.net. And finally, We're sponsored by Hexacon 2020. Coming up, MLK Weekend, Hexacon 2020. We're also sponsored by people like you. If you want to help us out, go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/Foxblade. Thank you. Now back to the show.
It's always kind of a good thing. We've got to fix that Hexacon thing, though.
2020 didn't happen.
Yeah, I guess really we could just kind of keep saying, well, the reason we keep using that commercial is because
And when you
we're
redo
hoping
it,
2020 will come around someday.
when you redo it, you just need to cross out the hex part and then put in whimsy, right? And then cross out the 0 and put in a 1.
Right.
And just leave everything else exactly the same.
I think actually we're just going to switch it to Shiny Garden.
Oh, okay.
Because that makes sense. Because Shiny Garden is sort of the convention overlord.
It's doing multiple conventions, so
We're doing multiple conventions. So we could do that. I just need to pull that down and find it. I need to find the master file. That's part of what's gone on. Is that was on my other computer. I believe it's been moved over properly, but I'm not sure. There's still a whole bunch of stuff that's sort of scrambled a little over here. So
I was recently looking at our Google Drive, and I don't think I saw it there.
I don't think so either.
No.
But I did manage to, before one of my hard drives dove off a cliff, I did manage to copy over like my video hack file, which is all the video crap that I had done. So I did, but it's all a mangled mess. So I've got to figure out what lived and what didn't, you know.
So did it throw itself off a cliff so you could retrieve the soul stone?
That's exactly what it did.
Had to sacrifice itself.
Yeah, it had to sacrifice itself for that.
Makes
Just
sense.
so we could have the soul
Yeah.
stone.
So The Good Place is one of those shows that came out in 2016, and for several years, various friends were like, "This is a really good show. You should watch it." And
Right.
I watched the trailer, and I'm like, "This doesn't really look like the kind of show I would like. It looks kind of vanilla, I guess, as far as comedy goes, and it didn't seem all that great." So I kept putting it off, and then finally, I guess it was about 2 years ago, before COVID hit. I started watching it and was hooked right after the first episode. I'm like, this show is way better than the trailer gives it credit for. And the reason the trailer can't show you how good it is because it has a lot of twists. And to reveal any of the twists, I think would take away from your enjoyment of it. And it can give you the premise without revealing any of the twists, which is The Good Place is referring to the good place where you go to when you're good and you die. If you're bad, you go to the bad place. And this is about a character who has ended up in the good place, and it's following what's happening with that character. And then the twists that come out related to that, you get your first twist in about, I'd say, 10, 15 minutes. And then they just snowball from there.
And it's amazing. I keep thinking, oh, well, they've got nothing else they can tell now. I mean, because they've just shown us everything there, so now there's nothing else to say.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that twist pretty much ends it. Yeah. Oh, wait, there's more.
Wait, well, there's more. Oh, yeah, well.
But
I'm amazed by it.
The acting's great. It's got Ted Danza in it. And
Danson.
Thank you, Ted Danson. Kristen Bell. Not the Christian you mentioned earlier. So the Kristen from earlier. And it's what Guy was referring to earlier is because it's the good place, there's no cursing. The cursing gets self-censored. So when the character's upset, they'd say like "holy shirt,"
right,
or "son of a binge." So, and because this was originally released on NBC on normal television, it was a neat way to get around that.
Which I thought was really forking good. And we have been at this here in the house. We've been really enjoying it, and it becomes much more entertaining than it needs to be. So I'm seeing if anything is still survivable in here.
Nope, it's all dead.
Yeah, we'll see whether it goes kabling.
I'm not even sure what you're talking about.
I'm looking through the video scratch file now
Oh, okay.
to see if I can find the commercials. And so, and it's kind of cute. So, anyway, I really like, and you're right. I mean, here we are trying to say it's a great show. You all need to watch it because, well, I can't tell you.
Right.
Because if I do, you'll know that everybody goes to Death Pizza, and and then they all die in the end.
And it turns out that the crust was stuffed with cheese.
Right.
So
I like stuffed crust.
But it's the nice thing is after that first episode, I was sold, and I think if it's not your style of humor, then you will know probably most likely after the first, I'd say definitely second episode, that this just isn't the show for you, because everything's subjective.
Right.
So what are we doing? I know we still have 12 minutes left. What are we doing next week, since we will be unsupervised then as well?
That's a good question.
We have audience members. Is there any
do
that any of you would like to see us cover next week? And we'll have to wait, of course, for the timing to catch up to that. Last time, Chelsea and I played Portal 2, which was interesting. It took us 45 minutes to get the game to work.
Just to get started.
Which was funny, because I thought I was the one who was going to have trouble downloading it. And it turned out it was Chelsea who had trouble downloading it.
And that's funny. So that's a good question. Do we want to play a game next week?
We
That'd
could
be kind of cool.
Try StarCraft again. I don't think Diablo 2 is free.
I don't think so either. So, no, we could try StarCraft. We did that once.
We did that once a while ago.
Yeah, we did that once.
We also, if people really enjoyed that, we could always do an encore version of StarCraft. We could also try doing an encore version of Counter-Strike if people really enjoyed that. We just have to try to get some of the gang together again, because it's better with 4 to 5 players.
Sure.
Wolfenstein. I don't try to stick to games that we have, and I don't know, or free. Let's see. And of course, there's been several of those so far.
Right.
Youngblood, I guess, is the latest one, which I have not kept up with Wolfenstein. Let's see. Whoops. I did the American spelling and not the German spelling.
Right. Hate it when that happens. I'm looking for stuff.
Okay.
If you're wondering. Because I'm not seeing the stuff that I thought I would see.
Let's see. Wolfenstein 3D DOS online game, retro gamings. Let's see if we got that. Is it multiplayer? Okay. Well, I found where I can play the original for free on an emulator.
Good heavens. Can you imagine us playing the original, though? That'd be fun.
I don't think it's multiplayer, so I don't know if we'd want to do a thing where we would take turns and see who dies first.
Yeah. I wish I could find the Aliens TC patch. I've always talked about the Aliens TC patch. That'd be kind of fun.
What else was there? Yeah, we can look around. We can play chess. That'll be exciting.
We could play 3D chess.
I don't think there's a program for that.
No, but we could actually see if we could try to go to a Starbucks.
But then we need more than one camera angle to have 3D chess.
Yeah, maybe. Something to think about. We don't have to. Just something to think about. So, Yeah, I'm not finding the actual video file. That doesn't mean that it's not here. It just means that I haven't found it yet. I'm running a search for it now. So anyway. So, okay, cool. Well, we've got about 7 minutes left in our show, and we're kind of winding down here.
Found the list of the rules for it. I thought somebody might have just made an online program because it seems like it'd be easy to do that. For programmers, that is.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Oh, we can look around and see what we can find.
Yeah, see what we can find.
StarCraft is definitely more exciting.
Agreed.
And we won't have Chelsea, so we could talk about BTS and not know what we're talking about. Hey, you got a BTS bag that apparently is like really hard to get a hold of.
Right? Well, I saved it for her just in case.
Which is great. Well, yeah, I really doubt she's going to find one. I've been to like 3 different McDonald's since we last talked, and all of them are like, no, we're out of the bags. And what I'm guessing is happening because they're pretty darn condensed and easy to swipe in a backpack. I'm thinking employees are just taking them because if they can sell just the bag and one of each of the 2 sauces for $10, I can see people who are making less than making minimum wage or less swiping those in order to make up more money.
Yeah.
Kind of like the way the Pokemon cards were going with McDonald's. Because people would
Yeah, I
just
can see that.
boxes of the McDonald's Pokemon cards.
Definitely see that. Yeah, I find that fascinating. I was at the mall today, and we went into box lunch, and there were Blackpink shirts and things like that. And I was like, it's kind of nice to see sort of
Things like
Korean
norm,
pop
yeah,
sort of filtering into our culture a little bit, you know.
seeing stuff that wasn't so mainstream back in the day when it had to be mainstream fandom for there to be merchandise for it, or you had to search in the darker corners of the internet to find it.
Right. Always interesting. I find those things very fascinating where, you know.
I'm disappointed they didn't do the Happy Meals as BTS and have like little plastic toys of the BTS characters for Chelsea to collect each of them.
She would.
Mm-hmm. Well, she'd try. It seems like they would sell out ridiculously fast.
They probably would. You're probably right. It's still funny.
Mhm.
Because the idea is she would totally do that. I could totally see that. So, yeah, well, that's an interesting thing.
Yeah. So there you go. If you're at McDonald's, ask if they have the bags
BTS
for the
bags.
BTS. It's called a BTS meal, which is more than a Happy Meal because it's supposed to be a meal designed, I guess, for the BTS fan. Shrug. But it doesn't come with a toy. It just comes with a bag. And then they have 2 special sauce flavors that I guess are from Korea or originated in Korea or something, or they're I don't know, but they have the Korean writing on them because I actually got the sauce, didn't get the bag.
I got the bag, you got the sauce, we got $10. Look at that.
Well, we owe it to Chelsea to give her the bag.
Leave her holding the bag.
Right. If it was a Star Wars or Star Trek bag, you know, you'd want it, especially if it had your favorite character on it.
Just says BTS, but yes, absolutely.
Hey, beats me. I mean,
I just work here.
I'm not a BTS fan, so I don't get the appeal necessarily of that concept of the bag itself. But where like Pokemon cards have an actual function in a game, so I can kind of get that, but I don't know. They definitely these things. Hopefully, between the Pokemon cards and the BTS bags, they'll start to realize they need to have a better job with supply and demand and making sure they have enough for the fans, that scalpers aren't encouraged to go out and just buy up the entire inventory and then turn around and sell it for a ridiculous price. Because if you make the inventory way more than that, then the scalpers won't get their monies and their investment back. Then you're now catering to the fans instead of the scalpers.
Fair.
So,
So,
Anyway.
always an interesting thing.
Yep. So we will figure out a game to play next week, I think.
Yeah, I think that'd be kind of fun. We'll figure out something to play or do, and we'll come up with something. Well, maybe we'll just do more Counter-Strike. That was kind of fun.
Yeah. And now that we've gone through the process of figuring out we'd have to remember, but we had to do something wonky with the sound in order to make sure that you weren't double hearing things through OBS or through what we were doing and through Discord. But we figured it out. I don't remember how we figured it out, but we figured it out.
Yeah.
And now I know that there's a little thing I clicked to say don't show the mouse cursor because I didn't see that until I went back and watched the video. And instead of crosshairs, you were seeing my mouse cursor in there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. I don't know. We'll have to figure all this stuff out. There's always something going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, well.
In any case, enjoy watching your streaming shows, people.
Yeah, watch your streaming shows, and we'll figure out what to do about that later, I guess.
Yep.
I'm curious to see how this is going to evolve, how we will kind of how the culture will reopen and get back out there. Boy, I really am feeling kind of like not with it. So
okay. Good thing that your pay reflects that. Good thing that you get paid the right amount for that then.
I do. I'm just saying that I get paid the right amount of money for this.
Yep.
So, okay, guys. Well, let's go ahead and wrap it on up. I think that's all the time that we have for today. We'll see you next week, and it'll just be Troy and I again, but we'll play a game. And so then we'll get Chelsea back at some point in time. Until then, I got to switch thingies. There we go. Switching thingies. There we go. I've been Guy.
I've been Troy.
And this is Geek Tank.